Well, hello. It's another episode of Real Estate Jerky Live. We had Brian from, what is it, Subtle Skills?
Subtle skills.
I don't know why I have such a problem with that word. It's so easy, but it's like, I'm redneck. What do you want? So we had him on the radio last weekend, and he shocked my co-host Marlene that he really knows what he's talking about. He really understands how to read people and understand how to communicate better with them. And the only way I was able to get her to really understand was for you to actually read her face, right?
Yep.
And so what I thought today with our live, we would start off with a couple people. First, we'll bring Amy Tiemeyer on, who you've met before, but that's okay. So everybody doesn't know that you're an introvert. So I'm trying to make, and even though that you use this to be an extrovert and go out and do everything you do, my goal here is to make you more comfortable and everything anyway. So sure. Amy, you want to let yourself in since you're good at this already? All right. And I'm going to,
in the background.
I'm going to add her in. There she is. Oh, I'm adding her back in. Amy, I'm going to make us all a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to actually, so say hi, Amy.
Hi.
All right. So Amy's also a co-host for the Helping the Brave. And you met her at Speakeasy, and I want you kind of to people understand what you're doing when you're reading people's faces and get to know them. So what I'm going to do is put her larger on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So not me. All right. So Brian, why don't you go through the process of how you explain and what you're doing?
Sure. So whenever you're learning to read faces, I like to read people like a book. So I start with top to bottom, left to right. And since I was going into this event, and Ed already mentioned earlier, I'm kind of introvert, extrovert. I love to be around people, but I'm terrified to be around people at the exact same time. And what I did is I kept an eye on the Facebook group to see all the people who said, hey, they're coming to Steve's event. And so Amy was one of the ones who said, yes, I'm going to be there. And I looked for her when I got to the event because she has these beautifully rounded eyebrows. And so people who have rounded eyebrows are always thinking about the people around them first. So they're going to make sure you're comfortable. They're the supportive type because they, unlike people with angled eyebrows, like I have angled eyebrow, which is help me understand it so I can help other people. Amy's always looking for how can I help everybody immediately, right? Like she'll do everything for everybody first and then herself second. So I was looking for people who were joining the event who had rounded eyebrows. And ironically enough, we ended up sitting next to each other. Now, she doesn't know who I am because, again, we're not allowed to say that we're a speaker until we're there. So I'm just sitting in the audience. But I had actually looked for her the entire time before we came out because she was one of the first ones I saw that had those features. So when you see the rounded features there's three types of eyebrows. So there's straight eyebrows, which are get straight to the point. There's rounded eyebrows. I think about the people around me. And then there's angled eyebrows like I have, which is help me understand my angle so I can then help other people. And so that's the first thing I looked for with Amy. But you can tell so many other things about her face, even from just looking here. So not only does she have the rounded eyebrows, but there's a little bit of space in between her eyebrow and her eye. So eyes are like speed bumps in that if data's racing down your head, the higher your eyebrow is, the slower it goes. So it goes slow over the speed bump and slow in. Versus if the eyebrow is right on top of the eye, then they understand information very fast because data can just race down their forehead. And so when you see the eyebrow that's lower to the eye, they make quick decisions, so get to the point fast. Now with Amy, like me, I have a little bit of space between my eyebrow and my eye. I don't like to be forced to make rash decisions. So I know if I'm asking anything out of Amy, I need to give her time to process it, because even if I convinced her to do something right now, she would have buyer's remorse. Is that pretty fair, Amy?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
is he close at all so far?
Yes.
And so there's so much more that you can see though, right? Now, again, I sat next to her and I met her, but so she has the high and white cheeks here, which when you see the wider cheeks, think from your nose out is like gas gauges. And so the wider out your cheeks are, the more energy that you have, right? So when you meet somebody whose cheeks are out wide, they can keep going and going and going, right? But so that's the next thing I notice about her. And then of course, she's got the good rounded chin here. So that's another rounded feature. So when you see somebody who has a rounded, larger chin, we all say the phrase, take one on the chin. That's how do you handle adversity, criticism, everything else. So what I know about Amy, the rounded eyebrows tells me she thinks about everyone else first. She's got a lot of energy, but then that rounded chin tells me that she will stand up for everyone all the time. So that's how you get that strong rounded chin, is she will take bullets for other people. So she's there to stand up for everybody that she considers to be within her circle, right? Is that a fair statement, Amy?
Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing that she has is her eyes angle up slightly. So when you see somebody whose eyes angle up a little bit, so if you were to grab a business card, and let me grab one from here, and you were to look.
It's going to be his business card, of course.
Yeah, of course it is. And you put it from the inner point of the eye to the outer point of the eye, you just look and go, which way would it angle? Up, down, whatever. So hers slightly angle up. So she's always looking for the positive side of everything, right? So the big challenge with Amy is if you come in talking about a lot of negativity and what went wrong, Amy will start shutting down because that's not the way that Amy thinks, right? Now, conversely, if you meet somebody whose eyes do angle down, those people are great at problem solving. So if you come in talking about all the positives and don't talk about the challenges you had to overcome, then they shut down. So the whole thing about face reading is learning to analyze somebody else's facial features and figure out, how do I speak their language? So the book, The 5 Love Languages, is a perfect example of it, right? You learn in that book, what's your 5 love languages? You know, is it acts of service, gift giving, physical touch, time and attention? That's what you want. But really, to have a relationship, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about customer service, friends, family, it's a combination of what does their face tell you about the way they take in information and prefer to hear things. So does that help explain it, Ed?
It does to me. Amy, is he correct? Because I know you do a lot of volunteering. I know you do a lot for everybody else. Do you ever take any time for you?
Well, so I always feel when I'm helping other people, that is taking time for myself because I get so much from it. And that's just, it's where a lot of my joy is. And so, yes, and I do advocate for people and so everything he says, I don't like it when people are super negative. I can appreciate the problem solving. Mm-hmm. And so I really think that that's a good thing for me to know so that I don't come in Sally Sunshine for everyone when they need to know what I've overcome, because I tend to not share a lot of the things that I overcome. I have, a crazy birth story that I never tell anybody because I don't know how it would benefit someone. But perhaps for the right person, it might.
Did you anything else, or you want to go on to our next guest?
Yes, no, I'm good. You can throw me out.
Throw you out? I'm just going to throw you in the waiting room. You can leave if you want.
That's right.
All right, we're going to bring on Yvonnes. Hold on here, Yvonnes. Sorry, you're right in the middle in front of everybody.
Right.
Don't be nervous. Brian's here to help you. Now, So this technique, it's different than body language. This is just understanding how you can communicate with somebody, right? Where body language is more about how they're coming across, right? Am I correct?
Yes. So as a matter of fact, Janine Driver, who is a friend of mine and a business associate also, she is one of the top rated body language experts in the world. And I actually taught on her class last night. And the benefits, I think everyone should learn body language. Hands down, that's a skill that everyone needs. As a matter of fact, didn't mean to be product placement, but I keep her book, You Say More Than You Think, with me. And when I say I keep it with me, I mean, I write into the notes and categories and everything because body language is so important. Because you have to get an idea of what's taking place in the room. But that's a reactive skill. And the difference with understanding people's faces is it's a proactive skill. So I can go onto LinkedIn, social media of any type, Facebook, Instagram, find a picture of someone, and all I'm looking is what their resting facial features tell me about that person. Are they auditory? Are they visual? Do they think about themselves first? Do they think about other people like Amy? So when you look at someone's face, you just understand how do they best take in information? Because when we're born, right, we're born with two things. We're born with a fear of loud noises and a fear of heights, right? That's what keeps us alive as a baby. But everything else is taken in through our eyes. And that's why everything around the eye is so important. Now, what happens over time is you develop a preference for auditory versus visual. But we all take in the world through our eyes first. That's why eye contact and everything else is so important to us as people. So when I go in, I look up somebody's like Facebook or Instagram or their LinkedIn, and I just do little examples of what does this person think like? How do they best receive information? And then when I'm interacting with them, I just make a conscious effort to speak their language. So you want to go back to Yvonnes?
Yeah, let's speak Yvonnes language, shall we?
That's right.
Hi, Yvonnes. Thanks for doing it. Appreciate it.
All right. So,
by the way, she is a first-generation homeowner. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So here's we're going to start top to bottom, then left to right, kind of like we did before. So What's interesting is her eyebrows go more straight and then they round off at the end. So what that means is when they're more straight, get straight to the point first. And then she's like, give me facts and figures. Then I'll figure out how it helps everyone else, right? But she has that height that we talked about in eyebrows before, where give her a little bit of time to digest things. She doesn't like when you say it has to be done now. Like if you pressure sale her on anything, she'll have buyer's remorse in a heartbeat, right? Is that pretty accurate? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what she does have is...
And she doesn't like me giving her something right now to do either. So it works the same way.
She also has a fuller upper eyelid. So when you see a fuller upper eyelid, and I was raised on the days of Dr. Seuss, so the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we. Where are we going? What are we doing? It's a lot of we things. So, Yvonne, you probably like to do things more with groups than you do by yourself, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So when you see that eyelid, that is somebody you have to think, where are we going? What are we doing? So we is their language, right? They're always thinking, let's do things together as a group versus I don't have a lot of eyelid. And so I'm always thinking, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And so when in a relationship, somebody who has a fuller lid, if they're dating somebody who has a thinner lid, then they know, okay, I have to let them space to go be themselves. And then the person who has no upper eyelid has to know I'm in a relationship with somebody who has a very full lid. I need to say, hey, what are we going to do? So that's how you learn to work with each other in a relationship. And then when I say relationship, it doesn't have to be dating. It can be work, coworkers, management, HR, you name it. So the next part that comes down is, can you turn to the side just a little bit? Okay, so she's got what's called like a long range nose. So she's good at planning out things a little bit longer, like farther in the future, right? I can't really see nostrils because it's not up close enough. So I don't want to make you go like this a whole lot. But what I do notice is she has a good fuller upper lip and a lower lip, right? So she has no problem talking about herself. But remember, is the less, sorry, I didn't say this before. So if you've ever heard the phrase, keep a stiff upper lip, the thinner that somebody's upper lip is, the more they don't like talking about themselves. And so that's where the phrase comes from. But see, we can see her upper lip, so she has no problem talking about herself. But here's the thing. When we were kids, you know how we draw a smiley face when we put those little etches on the end of the smile? Well, that's what Yvonne has. So these are called secret lines when she smiles. And what that means is, even though she's always out and willing to share a lot and she's a we person, she has to have some things that are just for hers because that's like what she treasures, right? So it may be reading by yourself. It can be something else. But when you see these little lines, there's parts of them that like, this is just for me, myself, and I, that I don't have to share this part with anybody else in the world, right? So you don't have to say what that is, but that's just what your face says, right? Now, she also has what they call healer cheeks. So her cheeks are rounded in such a way that people want to come up and talk to her quite a bit. So do people come up to you like just out of the blue and start talking and sharing their whole life story with you?
No.
No? Oh, usually these cheeks right here, because of the way that light reflects off of cheeks, they attract people to them. So there's two types of cheeks that people are attracted to. The first one's called movie star cheeks. So if you say like Scarlett Johansson, and she has those big cheeks that are rounded like that, when they walk into a room, they get attention immediately. And the second most common is the big rounded cheeks. So when you see the big rounded cheeks, we see that on like Santa Claus drawings. If you look at any Disney cartoon, anybody who's the caretaker has those rounded cheeks like that. We already talked about your eyelid. We talked about nose. We talked about lips. Can't really see the jawline right here, so I can't see that part. Okay. And then do me a favor, show me an ear. Pick one, either one. All right, so I would say you're more visual than you are auditory. So the way that most people look at that is when you look at somebody's eyes and you look at their ears, the larger their ears are, right, usually says that they're more auditory. But see, she's a good mix where her eyes are just slightly bigger than I would say compared to ears. So you visual first and auditory second?
Yes.
So she's the kind of person, if you're working with Yvonne, that you would want to send a text, send an email, because if you call her, she may answer the phone, but she probably won't, because that's not how she maintains data, right? Like she's more of a visual learner. So when you're wanting to communicate with her, is text the best way to talk to you?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is text and email the best way to work with you? Like
I would prefer phone.
You would prefer phone?
Yes.
Wow. See, I would have gotten that one completely wrong. Because looking, it looks like you're more visual. So I'm more visual, and then my ex was auditory. So whenever I was going to the grocery store, if she was like, hey, go get me these 5 things, I would come back like 2 of the right things and 3 of the wrong things. So we had to come up with a system where she would text me what she wanted from the store. But she went insane when I would text her because she's like, I am auditory. Just tell me what you want and I'll go get it from there. Do me a favor. I didn't do this with Amy. Raise your eyebrows up and squint down. I don't see anything on you there. Okay. All right.
Too much Botox.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Sometimes you can see things like little lines, like when I squint, you can.
Yeah, but she's not your age. She's
Yeah.
young. She's young. She doesn't have those lines yet.
So if you don't see any across the top, what that usually means is that's somebody that understands, like when you study things. I was the one who had to study and reread the same paragraph over and over again, right? Like I had to learn it down to a very deep level. And sometimes people just understand things quicker than everybody else, so they don't get those deep ingrained lines like I have across here. Now, what my lines say about my face is, see how they're all broken across here? Well, when you have broken lines, that's your attention span. So I'm one of those, I know a little about a lot, versus when you see one solid line, you see those on doctors, lawyers, where it's one thing that they've done for an extremely long period of time. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I see.
Hold on, I'm just, how close was he on this stuff, Yvonnes?
I would say about like 50-50, like towards the beginning.
Wow, yeah.
Towards the beginning, yes. I like to do like group stuff, family, friends, whatever. Towards the end, I do like to visualize, but I also like to communicate over the phone. Therefore, I know exactly what I'm doing, or if I have any questions, I could answer that there and then.
Right. So how do you remember information? Like if you talk to somebody on the phone call, do you remember it better if it's emailed or text to you, or if you just talk about it?
We talked about it. It's easier
Really?
for me.
See,
Yes.
I would have guessed that completely wrong. I would have guessed it was text message or email. Now, okay, so there is one last one, and this one's going to be a little bit embarrassing, okay, because I saw it while you're talking. So when you have this area here below your nose that's a little bit wide, she's a hugger versus a handshaker, right? Like if you just go in for the handshake to say goodbye, she's going to be like, no, not really. Is that part on as well?
Yeah.
Or am I just bombing on you?
Yes, I'd rather do handshakes.
You really do. God,
Yes.
I was way off on her.
I'm not a hugger.
Not a hugger? God,
For a
let's get this
family
one.
member, that's what he
For
said.
a family member, yes.
Yeah.
But
Not a stranger. Not a stranger.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying you should walk up and hug random people on the street.
Talking about your family, that you're more of a hugger than like, that kind of stuff. Nope.
Now, one thing that she
no, yeah.
One last
I prefer.
See, and
still
this
to
is
do
why I like this, and that's why I wanted her on, because she's very difficult to read.
Yes. And this proves nothing is 100%. Now, I can't tell because of the screen. Do you have the little arrow right here in your upper lip?
No, I do not.
You do not.
Oh.
Okay.
I think so, yes.
I don't
So
know.
if you
I
do,
can't
this
tell
is
you.
more of a tip. Yeah, I can't see from here. But if you do have it, this is what's called a Cupid's bow. And what that says is listen to me when I talk. So if you're going to be doing presentations where you want people to pay a lot of attention to it, then what you should do is with lip liner, highlight that arrow. So it looks kind of like you have one, but I can't make it out for sure or not.
No, yes, I do have one.
And yes, highlight it when you're doing any type of speaking where you want people to pay attention. It's a subconscious arrow that says listen to my words.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you for
Yvonnes.
being a good sport.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to get her. All right. Thank you, Yvonnes. You don't have to stay if you don't want. All right. So, I'm just being honest. They get, they got other stuff to do.
Yeah.
All right. So, as we just saw, it's not 100%, but
Nope.
it does get you to, but you're 50% more likely to connect with her, right? Than you were if you didn't even look at her features. Correct.
Right. So if I wouldn't have been looking at her face, what would I know about her? I could have looked up on LinkedIn what kind of work she does. Maybe on social media, saw if she'd posted pictures of hiking.
She's
or
not on
dogs.
social media.
Oh,
You'll
see,
never
so there
find
you
her.
go. Yeah. So the goal of it all is trying to just build rapport with someone by paying attention to them. And kind of we talked about earlier. So growing up as an introvert, I did pick up books on body language, how to win friends and influence people. And those are all great things, except for body language is reactive. You have to get in front of them first. But then if you're doing the how to win friends and influence people, what do you do now when it's Zoom or you can't go to somebody's office, right? So we talked about before with you. Okay, well, there's an American flag behind you. I can talk about that. But what else would I talk about with you if it's my first time meeting you on Zoom? There wouldn't be anything else that we could really discuss. And even when people still have offices, most meetings take place in a conference room now versus at somebody's office or cubicle. So you lose a lot of the skills. They're still important to know. Like you should always look, are they wearing an emblem of something, any type of jewelry? You're always looking for a way to bond with people. But when you do this, people can tell when you're giving them your full time and attention. For example, with Zoom even, the challenge is the natural tendency is to look down where the pictures are, but then we're not making eye contact, which is why you're supposed to look where the camera is the whole time you're talking. So Joe Ingram is a friend of mine. Simplest trick in the world, you take a Post-it note and you just put an arrow right where your camera is so that you remember where you should be looking to make eye contact with people instead of looking down at their pictures the entire time. That is a very simple, has nothing to do with what I teach, but that is a subtle skill that you can just put that little Post note right by your camera. So you're always looking at people, and that will actually help your Zoom interactions because people feel like you're paying attention to them on the Zoom. Now, when you do that in person, that's the other reason I'm a big fan of both body language and face reading. But if you're reading body language, then I'm looking down the whole time of what are you doing with your hands? What are you doing? Are you crossing your legs one way or the other? Versus if I'm reading your face, I'm looking at your eyebrows. And the next logical thing that happens is if I'm looking at eyebrows, eye contact comes next. And when you make eye contact with people and they can feel that you're giving them your time and attention instead of staring at this, it makes a world of difference in all of your communications.
Yeah, and women prefer when you look at the eyebrows. So
yes.
Yeah.
My eyebrows are up here. That's what the shirt should say.
All right. So our last person is another Amy.
All right.
So let's bring her in. All right.
Hello.
Amy, you're a little dark there.
Yeah.
Sorry. I re-angle myself. Is that
So we can,
better?
Right there. Perfect.
Yeah. No.
Slow.
There.
Right there.
I'm not professional.
We don't care. We don't care. It's not about that. It's about your face. So just we're only looking at your face.
all right. So Amy's a good sport in this because she has a flatter upper lip, right? So she doesn't like necessarily talking about herself right off the bat. Now, conversely, once you start talking with Amy, once she starts telling me about herself, then I'd say, okay, we've crossed that line where she's okay with me asking her personal questions. But I would never start off with asking her a personal question right away. But she also has what the other Amy has, right? Rounded eyebrows. But Amy's are closer to her eyes. So she understands and can make decisions faster than the other Amy can, right? So do you make decisions fairly quick?
I think it totally depends on what it is.
So what she does have is she also has the more lid here. So like we talked about, the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we. You have a rounded forehead.
Hold on,
so
a little bit more in the light there, Amy, because it's still
This
dark.
way? Is that better? If I just turn around, sorry, you can
There,
see all
right
this
there.
one.
Oh,
Sorry.
wait, there. That's perfect.
Right there.
Okay. All right. So
Just make me some of that what's that, shake and bake up there?
Stuff, yes.
That's funny. So there's two things. Can you turn to the side for just a little bit? Okay, so she has a slight what's called a brow ridge, which a brow ridge is, I like things in order. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. If I jump from step 1 to step 4, they tend to ask what happened to 2 and 3. When she raises her eyebrows up, you'll see she's quite brilliant with all the things that she's studied. So see right there? Those are called Einstein lines, right? When you have it right there. Those are things that you put in time, effort, and energy to study. So when you have a task and you have to learn something new, you dig in, right? Squint for me. Okay, so, oh, wait. Okay, so you have the two lines right here are called forced focus lines. And what those are is when you are deep in the middle of something, we almost have to like walk up and smack you in the back of the head to get your attention because you are super focused whenever you're into something, right?
Yeah.
Can you just correct it all?
Yes, some of it's correct.
What was wrong?
I don't know.
What was not correct?
Definitely, I like steps for sure. I don't want to be sporadic. I like to focus on one thing at a time, one step at a time, if possible.
Right.
Which is
And then are you super focused on something and you have to be smacked in the head to get out of it?
I think, again, it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Can this be different between personal and business?
Yeah, so we haven't talked about that with the rest of the group, but so everybody's face is on two different sides. So if you cover up this side of the face, it's one, this side's the other. But the easy way to remember that is if you have somebody like, hey, are you married? That's a personal question. And so where do we wear wedding rings in the US? It's on the left side. And so this side of somebody's face is their personal side, and this side is their professional side. So you can absolutely be two different people. I'll challenge anybody after this, go and Google Jeff Bezos. He has two totally looking sides to his face on his personal and professional. I may even see if I can pull up a picture in a minute. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can do that real fast. And then
I'm sure Amy's really nervous to be on here, so you want to finish her up.
Sure.
Introvert, you might know how that is.
So there's one. Is this the little? Do you have a little cleft right here in your chin?
I don't. Do I guess so. Yeah, that looks a little bit right there.
Yep. So there's two things that she has, right? So one is this little is the highly adaptable line, which means we can normally throw her into pretty much any situation. She'll adapt on the fly. But what she also has, and Ed, you know this from being in the speakeasy, this little line below her lip and above her chin, that's a verbal affirmation line. So what that means is every once in a while, sincere verbal compliments are what makes her happy, right? Usually because when you have the rounded eyebrows, you're so busy doing everything for everybody else that sincere compliments go a long way with you, right?
I would say yes.
Yeah. So those are the main things about Amy.
Anything you want to add there, Amy?
No, I don't think so. Ears.
So, so your ears kind of blend in with your head. So that usually means you're conformist with your ears, right? The farther they're out, think of like wind drag. The farther out your ears are, the more independent you are. The closer they are to your head, the more you kind of go with the flow of things. But what I didn't talk about earlier is you have a rounded forehead. So a rounded forehead, even though you like processes, that usually means you're an outside the box thinker. So you want to know, how does everybody else do step 1 through 4? And then you're going to make it your own, do it your own way, right? So do you constantly re-engineer how things are done?
Whether I like it or not. Yep.
Yeah. So those are the main things I see about her face. You know what I haven't seen, Ed, on anybody yet is I haven't seen super strong jaws. And when you see that, that usually means somebody who's really opinionated, like because they latch in like a pit bull and it's almost impossible to get them to change your mind. But I haven't seen anybody with super strong jaws, which is a good thing because that means there's not a whole lot of inter-office quarrel, but you know.
Amy, we good? I appreciate. Hey, yeah. Amy, thank you so much for doing this for us today. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
And
nice to meet you.
I'm gonna kick you out, and you can do whatever you want if you want to keep watching or whatever you want to do. All right, I'm gonna put you back over here, Brian.
All right.
Let's share the screen. And you're gonna share something?
Yeah, I was gonna share something real fast. I was gonna finish looking up Jeff Bezos, see if I can find a good picture of him. All right, so once you learn all of this, my favorite tool whenever I'm doing pretty much anything is a software program called Sketch, because you can take a picture of pretty much anybody, and then I'll show you how all the arrows and everything works. I'm gonna do share.
I'm gonna put this on the screen for you. You still doing that, right?
Yep.
All right. So if anybody wants to learn this whole thing, he discounted his actual program. Go there, check it out. And so you need to know this along with body language so you know how to communicate with anybody through life, your spouse, at work, you name it, employees. Say there's a reason I brought on a couple of my employees. Yvonne, they're both amazing, but the issue is like Yvonne is really hard to read, right? She's really hard. Very hard to read emotion, and it could be upbringing, a lot of different things, right? Doesn't want to put that out there. It's just where they came from. You never know. So it's one of those things. I wanted to see how close you were with what you were talking about. So, all right, I'm going to put this like this. So you can go ahead and share the screen, what you're going to share.
All right. So it's there.
Here, I'm going to add the stream. There you go.
All right.
It's there for you.
Oh, it's there. Okay. All right. So this is a program called Sketch. So what you can do with Sketch is you can literally just draw along pictures. So if I was sitting here and draw down his face, look how different each side of his face looks. Look how this is his business side. So if I change it to here, look how much farther this ear sticks out in comparison to the other one. And then of course, like we talked about earlier, outlook, look how far his eyes slant down on this side versus they're just kind of even kill a little bit on this side. So people can look completely different on both sides of their face. And we talked earlier about jaws. So let me get rid of some of these. I was talking about people who have a really strong jaw, that they're very determined. Once they make up their mind, they put up a lot of fight. Look how strong of a jaw he has right here. So you can look at all these things about people, but it's interesting because when I draw this line, let me straighten this up just a little bit. I mean, if you look at each side of his face and cover it up, he looks like two completely different people. So on his personal side, his eyes open, his cheeks, you can tell, are a little bit wider. On his work side, it's almost like everything is slanting down. But you see a lot more eyelid on his professional side. So he's got to be thinking about we, me, my employees, everybody else. But he's got hardly any eyelid on the other side. So that gives you an example of how people can look completely different from one side to the next. So it's just kind of crazy what it can look like. Now, I'm going to show you guys one other thing. So let me stop sharing this one. Stop screen. Let me share one other one. And I'm going to show you, let me know if you can see this one.
Want me to bring it in for you, or you got it?
Yeah. How do I bring it in?
I got it. There you go.
All right. So people ask all the time, what are the different ways it can be used? So it can be used for sales, it can be used for relationships, dating, friends, family, coworkers, you name it. So this is actually one of my new courses called Looking for Love in All the Wrong Faces, because during COVID, people couldn't go out on dates. And so people started hitting me up left and right going, hey, I met this person, or I'm interested in this person. And they'd send me a screenshot, and I would use Sketch just like I told you, and I would send back all the things that their face said. So I put together a quick class. Let me go here. So what are the challenges? Kind of like we already talked about. People spend up on too many bad dates because all they're doing is looking at a picture and reading the bio. But what we basically teach is, how do you find the feature? How do you access the meaning? How do you convert and express? This is the exact same thing that we do for sales or rapport building at companies. This is just on the romantic side. So when you look at anybody's face, like we did with everyone today with the two Amy's and with Yvonnes, is you look for either what stands out on their face, or you can read each individual feature. But an easy way to do it is think, if you were having a characterist draw a picture of you, what would they exaggerate or highlight about your face? That's when I look at somebody, I'm like, okay, well, what stands out about the person? Then you can say, okay, what do those features tell you? Then you convert it and you think of how would they best hear or receive it. And is it 100%? Absolutely not. You saw, if I was thinking I need to email or text Yvonnes to get her attention, she said, no, it's auditory. But people can tell when you're focusing on them. When I used to go and do presentations for companies, the company I worked for, anytime we had a client over $1 million that we had to do a best and final presentation, they flew me around the US with 2 other people. And it's because I could go and practice everything in the hotel the night before, but people were always the unknown until I learned how to read their faces. And once I learned how to read their faces, I knew when you're talking facts, figures, data, who to point at. When you're talking about how it's going to help the employees, who do you point at? Because those people, when you're speaking their language, they listen, and of course they nod and everything else. But then last part, you basically, once you're focused on them, how do you say it to build rapport? And then why we've never heard of it, because it used to be lumped in with phrenology, which is bumps on the head. And they would basically say, oh, well, you've got this bump here, you're a criminal, so we should put you in prison. So obviously we got rid of that, but because it was associated so close to face and facial analysis or face reading, they all got thrown out at the same time. But what's funny is we still talk about faces, and we say, keep a stiff upper lip, take one on the chin, keep your nose to the grindstone, you name it. Turn the other cheek. Well, why do you turn the other cheek? Because it may be that you were personally offended, so you're going to show your professional cheek. So we talk about face reading a lot. We just don't realize that we do it. We've also been trained through comic books, Disney movies. All the heroes and villains always have the same look. Even Edgar Allan Poe took physiognomy classes because authors had to know, how did they describe everybody in their stories so that we picture in our head what they look like. So we didn't say John is the evil villain. We would say John with his downturned nose and his pointed chin and his angled eyebrows. That's what we think of when we're reading the book. And that's why sometimes when there's poor casting done in a movie, we can't get into the movie because we're looking at the person thinking, how's that person the villain? Or how's that person the hero? And so sometimes it throws us off of our game. The big question everybody always asks is, what about genetics? Well, genetics are what we're born with. And then epigenetics is what we experience in life over time. And so the mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. There's 42 muscles in the face, and they change and alter over time. And because of that, that's why you can even take identical twins and they'll look a little bit different. Or if you see somebody who goes to the gym, like the picture at the top, that guy's never done leg day in his life. Well, you wouldn't say that's genetics. That is, he chose to move the muscles on the upper part of his body and not the lower. So that's where the genetics versus epigenetics comes in. So with that, people always ask, why in some of the courses do we use vectors and cartoons? This is a great book called Visnostic Sales and Marketing by Kimberly Slavic. In that, they put people in MRI machines and ask them questions and learn from neuroscience, what do people like and what people don't like? And what we found is when you do vectors or cartoons, our brains don't focus on the details. So we tend to learn concepts faster. That's why we learn through cartoons first, and then we watch real TV second. Does that make sense?
You mean as kids, we watch cartoons first?
Yeah. Well, I still watch cartoons. Of course, I get to blame it on my 4-year-old, but you know.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
I'm like, you want to watch Megamind today? So I like movies like that. We kind of talked about it earlier. I like to read people like a book, just top to bottom, left to right. We talked about everybody should start with their own face. Just cover up one side of your face or take a picture of yourself and cover it up and look at how differently you look, kind of like Bezos did earlier.
Right.
And the reason for that is, we talked about it, left side is your personal side, right side's your professional side. So you can literally look like two different people because we are a different person a lot of times at work versus at home. And the big question I get asked on that is, well, what if I'm a stay-at-home mom? That's a freaking job. That's the toughest job. You know what? If there was something that wasn't respected before COVID, it sure as hell is now, right? After everybody had to stay home and figure out what to do with kids, there's a whole new respect for teachers, for everybody that's on the front line, and for definitely stay-at-home moms as well. So that is your job when you're there, or if you're a student, right? That's your job. That's not who you are personally. It's what you do externally. So then we kind of talked about that already. So what I want to show you the last part of today is the 3 types of eyebrows, because I think this is something everybody can walk away with. And so the first is there's rounded, there's angled, and there's straight eyebrows. So the rounded ones are always thinking about the people around them first. So when you see somebody with rounded eyebrows, so both the Amy's had rounded eyebrows, they think of everyone else first and themselves second. So if you're talking to them, you ask them about coworkers, friends, family, whatever, and then you can come back and talk about them because they're not used to talking or thinking about themselves first. The second one, like what I have, is the angled eyebrow. So help me understand it so I can help others. I didn't get these eyebrows until I became a corporate trainer. And then I had to learn all the material so that I could turn around, regurgitate it, and create slideshows and create training courses and everything else. That's when I got the angled eyebrows, was back then. So I have a picture of me in my training course at 16 and 36 and how vastly my face has changed, right? And women have the advantage of using makeup to change their face. Guys, we can alter some things, but not nearly as many things. Last part is the straight eyebrow. So straight eyebrows get straight to the point, facts, figures, data. Those are the people that you just want to give them the information quick and just shut up, because they're going to ask you for what else they want. But the longer you talk, the more that they disengage from the conversation. So if you look at people, you can see just different examples, even in the cartoons here, who's got a straight eyebrow, who's got angled ones. And then you can, of course, see it in real life people too. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, she's definitely got straight, right? On the right-hand side, she has angled. So what's her angle? And then down at the bottom, you see the rounded eyebrows there. So everything that we kind of talked about today and we saw in the 2 Amy's, if you take nothing except for these 3 things, the 3 types of eyebrows, I guarantee it'll change your life, because it changed mine. I went from being on the help desk to now I'm a regional vice president of sales for a pretty large company. And it's all because once I learned to get out of the prison of my own mind and into the present moment by just analyzing their faces, I never tell anybody what I'm doing, but because I'm focused on them at the same time, it changed my personal and my professional life in ways that like nothing else has. It's quite insane.
It's funny. Everybody's telling me that you should read my face.
Oh, I can do that again.
I think that was probably Amy doing that.
Which one?
My co-host for the show later in the day. I'll remove your little. Are you good here?
Yeah. If anybody wants more information, all I can do is scan the QR code there. If not, you can go ahead and get rid of it.
Well, no, and not only that, then they can also, if they want to get direct, they
that's
can go
exactly
direct
what I was
too.
going to say.
Yeah. So, all right, last one. We only got a couple minutes here, so.
Yep. Go ahead.
I'm going to
Pop
remove
yourself
it.
up. Yeah.
There you go. And let's get closer.
So you're a little blurry today, so I may have to cheat and just grab something from you. Let me go grab something off of Instagram real fast.
Blurry.
Yeah, for some reason I can't see you. You seem grainy on my side, so it's probably my connection.
It's
So
Amy.
Give me 1 second, and then I'll just grab it and I'll share it.
Like all of a sudden, there's all these comments all over, and it's like it's got to be the same person.
All right, so let's go.
You know, try now. Is it better now? Because you got rid of that extra screen.
No, it's still like you come in and then it goes blurry again. That's okay though. I can grab you from here. Let me see here.
Just go to Facebook.
I was gonna say because
all
all
we're doing.
Yeah. Facebook.
Just don't click on the
No,
sound.
I won't join. That'd be breaking the fourth wall in movies, right?
I guess.
All right. Let me grab one here because most of your stuff is videos. So give me 1 second. Go to photos. I mean, what's funny is we could actually use your animated. You know what? We can use your animated one. Let me, because it's funny because they had to draw you like you, right? So,
Yeah. Actually, I think they just used the picture and converted it into a character.
right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to use this. So let me stop here. I'm going to share one last time. Since I can't use your actual face here, I'm going to go share screen.
Just bring it in. I'll pop it in for you.
Yep. All right. Should be able to see it there.
Look, where's that beard from? I don't have it anymore.
All right. So since we can't make out this party there. So first thing I was talking about earlier that I like to do is I like to first see what's the angle of somebody's eyes, right? So if I draw a line from here to here, look at that. Slightly optimistic on both sides, right? So if we draw arrows, not overly optimistic, but you like to hear the positive on things. Got a little bit of an eyelid here. We'll use a different color since we got the red, white, and blue. But if we look at your eyelid, so you've got a little bit of lid on both sides, right? So you're kind of in between. You can do things alone, you can do things together, but you don't have that you really fall into one category 100% one way or the other. But what we do see, take away those, is if we look at your eyebrows, right, and we try to draw a line, it would almost be more straight eyebrows, but they have a little bit of a curve to them, but not as much as the Amy's had, right? So it'd be kind of what we call a no read, which is it doesn't define you one way or the other on your eyebrows. But I would guess if I was looking at it, I would get straight to the point first since they start off that way, and then they round off at the very end like the other Amy. Now, not surprising that you have a podcast, but if we look here and look at, you have larger ears, right? So more auditory than visual, because look at the size of your ears when they're there.
Watch it there.
And say they're big.
That's why, that's why I have to have them covered with these. I'm just kidding. I was going to go to the other ear things, and my wife's like, I like the look of the over the head. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah. Whatever.
So I would say here more auditory. Now, we talked about this before. The one tip I give every single guy is, and this
trim up your mustache.
Trim up the beard so you can see the upper lip. 100%. That's the advice I gave to Steve Sims even before. Now, here's what's funny. There's two things about your picture on your nose, and because we can zoom in on this, we couldn't see everybody else's. I can go into, it's going to sound funny, I can go into your nose more than everyone else. So this little line right here that they captured where it's a deep crease in your nose, when you have creases like that, that has a hard time delegating things to other people because I still want to make sure it's done right. So you can do it, but you're still going to double check on people. Like it's not one of those things you can just easily give it away and just expect that it'll come back fine. You're always going to have a challenge with delegating some things. But then because you have good full nostrils, you have no problem taking risks, right? So if I can see nostrils on someone, everybody can see it. And we think, oh, look, they've got enough air to share. So nostrils, because if I said, hey, take a deep breath, most people go through their nose without even thinking about it. So the larger the nostrils are, the more energy in life that they can take in, right? So the longer that they can last. And noses are kind of like umbrellas, in the wider that they are at the base is like an umbrella. So the wider an umbrella is, the more people they can support. So if we were to draw underneath your nose, it's actually the same thing. Well, you can support a lot of people with the nose that you have, right? And the fact that people can see your nostrils, they're always thinking, oh, he's willing to share. And that's one of the reasons it's a consensus builder, when people can see your nostrils like that. And that's all I can really make out because of the beard on everything from here. But, there is one last thing. So I'm going to change to green here. So this area here is called the SelfWill Pad. Whoops, let me change that back to a square. This area right here is called the SelfWill Pad. So the SelfWill Pad is, when you see that on somebody, that's somebody who's always constantly pushing themselves to do more. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that. So they could have a micromanaging boss and it really wouldn't matter because they've already thought of everything they need to do anyway. So those are the main things that your face says about you. Accuracy?
No, completely wrong.
Yeah.
I'd say 10% right. Yeah.
So
so there you go. No, I'd say 100% accurate. Yeah.
And that's what's fun about it is because
right.
nobody knows.
I'm gonna get you done. I'm gonna get rid of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're both.
Yeah. Again, this is
see me at all.
What's that?
Am I still grainy?
It's still grainy.
Okay, well, I'll deal with it. Yeah. So,
but this is what changed my life. So it's about repetition, right? So you learn something today. Please go download the eyebrow cheat sheet that's on the link that he put up. It will change your life. I can't tell you, so we'll talk about the ways that it does work. 10 promotions all came after I learned this skill. I learned body language before that, but because you can sit in a room and people can tell that you're paying attention to them, you can instantly build rapport with people. So I cheated, and besides Amy, there's Matt and what's her name, Lindy, that I looked at them before we went to the event. And so when I walked in, they were the first people I saw, and he's pretty easy to find because he's got a mohawk, right? And I walked right up and I talked to him for a little bit. And afterwards I said, "God, have we met you before? I just feel like we really know you." I'm like, "No, this is my first time here." But it's because I took the time to focus on them. And when people can really feel when you're genuinely interested in them, and that's the big part about this, I want people to understand. This entire thing is about wanting to deepen relationships with people, right? It's not about what can I get. It's really about what can I do to create a better connection with other people. And I went from, again, the biggest introvert you ever met, who I'd love to be out in places, but I couldn't talk to people, that now you can pretty much throw me anywhere and I can talk to anybody.
And yes, you can.
Yeah.
You proved it to me. Yeah. You proved it to me.
Yeah. Well, you want to tell the story?
No, I'm just saying it's amazing. You can do whatever. And that's important, because the reason I wanted to have this is so people understand there's better ways to communicate with people, understand who they are, so that you can have a relationship with them. Our world's so fast these days. Everything goes by so fast, and we're such in a hurry. Take a little time, get to know the person so you know who you're talking to.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, teach this to kids, because the biggest challenge that kids have this day and age is they're growing up in the world of perfection. And what I mean by that is they can retake all their photos. If they don't like it, oh, that one's not perfect, let me retake, 10,000 photos. They grew up in the day and age of emails and text messages. So they're constantly crafting things. And that's why they don't feel comfortable making a live call or seeing somebody face to face, because they grew up where they get to craft and perfect every interaction they have on social media, text messages, email, you name it. That's why FaceTime, it helps, right? Just like we're doing Zooms here, because this would be kind of boring over a conference call. But that's a very important thing for kids to learn. There is especially in the last year and a half, kids' ability to socialize with other people is bad enough, let alone we have some friends, and I'm going to call my friends out. As soon as we go to a restaurant, they pop an iPad in front of their kid, right? Because they're like, well, we want them to be entertained. Now, I have a 4-year-old that she is only allowed we'll bring her iPad at times, but if she's gotten her food first, because we try and get her food, then if she gets a little bit cranky, then we'll give her technology. But we want her to interact with everybody at the table first. Servers, please and thank you. What's ask the servers, what's their name, everything. Those are all skills that kids are not learning, especially when you take technology with them immediately. Add COVID to it and masks. They can't read lips. They feel muffled. They can't understand sounds. It's going to be a very challenging time. So if not for you, for your kids, this is an important skill to learn. Absolutely changed my life. I can't tell enough people about it.
And I've been trying to tell a lot of people about it too, because I had you on the radio. We did Inner Edison. Now we did this live.
Yeah.
It's huge. I think, once you when you were at the speakeasy and you were talking about it, I was like, wow, I was in awe with what I learned from just you being there talking, and then everything you've done and every face you've read. And like we showed today, it's not 100%, but even at 50%, it's still much better than not knowing. So Brian, I want to thank you so much for coming on today in the Real Estate Jerky Live. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me back, Dan. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do something else down the road again. All right.
Absolutely. All right.
And don't go away. And everybody, thanks for watching today. And if you're rewatching this, just put a little comment that you're rewatching it and you watch it later. I really appreciate it. And Brian, thank you so much. If you want to reach out to him, you can reach out to him with his email right there. Brian at subtleskills.com. God, I don't want to have such a problem with I guess it's not so subtle to me. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Brian. All right. And everybody else, thanks for watching.